All right, I think we will start. Da byrja ég til að segja velkomin kæru gestir, ánægilegt að koma hér saman í dag og heyra frá tveimur Fulbright-fræðimönnum sem hafa lagt á mörkum hér á Íslandi síðustu mánuði. Viðburðurinn fer fram á ensku og ég ætla núna að skipta yfir. So, welcome everybody to this Fulbright Forum. I want to note in the beginning that we are live on Zoom as well, and there are a lot of people joining us on Zoom. And we are recording as well. We will be taking questions after each presentation, so if you want to ask questions virtually, you can go onto the Zoom link and put your questions in there. And for those who are here in person, we will have some refreshments after the presentations. I can't believe that we're already here. It seems that these two fabulous Fulbright scholars just arrived, but alas, their stay is soon coming to an end. But before they leave, of course, we want to hear about their experiences in Iceland over the past months. The two scholars who are presenting here today are both on Arctic grants. They have both spent the fall semester at the University of Iceland, although their work has been in very different areas, but all related to the Arctic. I want to first give a warm welcome to Dr. Kathy Dhanda, who is here in Iceland as a Fulbright-Ministry for Foreign Affairs Arctic scholar. This grant is set up to advance Iceland as a hub for Arctic scholarship. And we're really interested to have scholars from different disciplines, different fields, come over on this grant. Kathy is actually the first one in business study to get the grant. And she is visiting us from Sacred Heart University in Connecticut, where she's a professor of management, and she's hosted by the School of Business at the University of Iceland. And I know that she has been using her time here extremely well. Kathy, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you everyone for attending. I have to kind of stay here because I know a bunch of my friends are on Zoom as well. We really bounce around the room, so thank you. Most of these pictures are my pictures, except for one or two that I had to do stock pictures. So my background is in sustainability and CSR, corporate social responsibility, but I'm also a supply chain expert. So when I came here, I wanted to look at the Arctic, specifically Iceland's role in the Arctic. And I thought I'd look at climate change, but on supply chain. So in supply chains, you can look at anything. You can look at the supply chain of a tomato, you can look at supply chain of a sheep or wool, but I thought, why don't I do energy? Just because Iceland has so much energy and a lot of the energy is sustainable. So this is from Snæfellsnes, and this is some random picture while I was exploring. Oh, all right, Peter, I'm now used to this, so just press the enter key.
Thank you.
The arrows.
I have a Mac.
Here.
All right, thank you.
Oh, let me see, why is it going forward? Oh, yes, it's, there we go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So this is from the conference that we did at the Arctic conference in Harpa, just a broad overview. So again, I wanted to also look at how Iceland plans this dual goal. You know, they have all this beautiful nature, so how are they doing environmental conservation while they're developing the economy. And because even though I'm a mathematician, I do a lot of environmental modeling, I didn't know how much numbers or data I would have. So I took a different tack and I tried to do more of an experiential kind of, literature review along lines of doing an interview-based study, so interviewing all the stakeholders, collecting the data, and just trying to see what are the experts in the area talking about when they want to look at the energy and climate change. So again, Arctic is very fragile, I don't have to tell you that. Iceland's energy system is highly renewable, highly self-sufficient, hydropower, geothermal, and they're also looking at wind. So when I started looking at it, then I realized they have all these aluminum smelters. What is Iceland doing smelting aluminum? So that was a new question that I put in the survey. So that's what I was trying to go through. All right. So here's the study. This is not my expertise, so I relied on some of my colleagues back at Sacred Heart who are experts in the field. And with their help, I drafted a semi-structured survey instrument, which I'll show to you. Then I contacted stakeholders. So all of September, I spent my month looking at all the websites and contacting the CEOs of Alcoa, Rio Tinto, Century, Landsbjörken, Reykjavik Energy. Nobody replied. And I was looking at PR offices. I was calling the mayor's office. I went to the mayor's office 8 times, and I was given the runaround. Oh, they'll call you, they'll call you, they'll call you. And then I realized I needed a new strategy. So luckily at the University of Iceland, they have these Friday socials on a coffee. And at that point, our dean introduced me to some people at the faculty who are on the boards of Reykjavik Energy and other energy companies. So that just gave me an opening. So I met Gylfi Magnusson, who introduced me to one person. That one person introduced me to 3 other persons. So Julio knows that. So it was through these one-to-one contacts, I found out that Iceland is a very small country, and then you have to know somebody. So me going through websites was a complete dead end. I had to make that one-on-one connection with some people in order to then get all my group of people. So in the end, I had 12 interviews from key stakeholders. Rio Tinto, Samal is a group that represents the aluminum industry, Orca, Landsbjörken, Reykjavik Energy. The mayor's office finally gave me a person after giving me a big runaround. Environmental NGOs, policy experts in the Ministry of Energy and Environment. So my teaching case is complete. I have 84 pages of transcripts. So I have lots of data that I'm trying to just weave through, and then I'll also make a research case out of it, right? So this is the survey. It's very, very, content heavy. Please excuse me for that. So generally, there are a couple of themes you can do. So of course, in any interview, you warm up your person, talk to us about yourself. And then I went right into the energy system. How did the energy system of Iceland develop the way it is today, and where do you see it going? Secondly, what is this thing about aluminum smelting? Why is Iceland smelting all this aluminum? I do a lot of work on carbon capture and carbon neutrality, so I was really curious to hear about CarbFix. I went up to CarbFix a couple of times, so I wanted to ask what is the role of carbon capture and utilization strategies in Iceland. Then I wanted to get them a little uncomfortable, so I asked them about their tension. Do they ever feel tense about this juxtaposition of conservation versus development? So the tension and balancing development, both in their personal role and their organizational role. How can the country balance development, and who are the main stakeholders? Then I said, again, climate change and the Arctic location. I do want to write a case study, so I asked these policy experts, I'm going to write a case study. What would you advise policymakers of the future, the students, business students, what have you, and open-ended questions, right? So that was the whole survey, right? So these are the 8 people who have social media presence, and I could get the picture. Julio was also one of my respondents. He was very kind to let me do the first one. Thomas Sigurdsson is the CEO of Orca, and he has a pretty distinguished background being the CEO of Rio Tinto. Haran Hafrandottir, sorry, I will not pronounce and butcher the last name. She's from the mayor's office. In the end, she was a really, really sweet woman, though it took me a long time to get to her. Gurdidor is the front person of Samal, which represents all the 3 aluminum consortia. Valur is at Landsbjörken, and so Landsbjörken is the biggest energy company, state-owned. Erikur is at Reykjavik Energy. He's the chief sustainability officer. Magnus is at the Ministry of Environment, Energy and Climate. I met him yesterday. Snæborn is a very passionate environmental NGO. He's also a geologist, so he represented, the environmental side. And Bjarni Gylfason is more of a PR person, but at Rio Tinto. And then there are 4 others. Julio has put your picture there, and then there are 3 others for whom I couldn't find a social media picture, so they're not here, right? So there's some of my respondents. All right, so the next 9 slides are going to be a little content heavy, and please excuse me for that, but it is a research presentation, so I have to share my results. So remember, I have 84 pages of all this data, and I try to put it in 9 slides. So it is really a bird's eye view or a tree forest view of the research results that I have for you. All right. So the first thing is energy system development. So all the respondents told me that till 1960, Iceland's energy was really under or developing, let's just say. All right. So it was really very rudimentary. Right around 1960s, they had this huge realization that they were sitting on this untapped energy systems. So they had some people come in, and there was a shift that happened from fossil fuels to hydropower and geothermal. Also in 1960, the first smelter was established in the eastern parts of Iceland. I will not try to pronounce the names. They are very, very hard for me. All right, so this aluminum smelter came in, and in a big push, Iceland's economy switched over to hydropower and geothermal. Right now, hydropower and geothermal dominate the portfolio. A lot of people are talking about wind energy, but again, that's more on the border. Right now, it is hydropower and geothermal. Aluminum smelting is huge. It is one of the pillars of the Icelandic economy. The other two pillars being tourism and fisheries. But aluminum has very significant environmental impacts, and there's a lot of people who just do not like aluminum. I'll be very blunt. They wonder why aluminum is here. There's a very strong advocacy that's anti-aluminum. The energy projects are specifically government pushed, and the government really looks at rural development, public ownership, and rural infrastructure. So a lot of people talk about wind, but even with wind, there are certain people who are like, not in my backyard. I want wind, but again, I don't want wind in my backyard. So we'll talk about that as well. So going to the future, they are really talking about smaller, more sustainable projects. And even with wind, remember, when you are putting a wind tunnel or wind power in, you still have to connect it to the transmission line. So it's all about where do you want to put the wind. Aluminum smelting, low carbon. Now that seems a little oxymoronic. Let me unpack that. What they mean by low carbon is when Samal or the aluminum people talk about low carbon, they're comparing themselves to Brazil or China. Their thing is that if we smelt aluminum in Iceland, we take it from bauxite or alumina, because our input is clean, renewable energy, we can smelt it at 1/6 the impact versus if China were to do it or Brazil. So that's the thing called low carbon or green alumina. So the first time I heard about green aluminum, I was a little taken aback. So I had to kind of unpack that a little bit. All right. So all of them are very direct about the future of aluminum, which I'll talk in the next slide. Geothermal projects also have a lot of financial stress. So that's there. So again, there is a lot of tension around balancing conservation with development, but there's a lot of politics around it. And with the elections on November 30th, it remains to be seen how the next government, coalition of government is going to proceed going in the future. Right. So a specific question was around aluminum smelting, just because I was very curious about it. So it is one of the three pillars. Now there are three big aluminum smelters in Iceland. There's Rio Tinto, Alcoa, and Century, established in 1960s. Remember, all three are foreign-owned companies. That does not earn them any favors. All right. So even though when they came in, they brought in jobs. They have a significant GDP revenue. They're one of the whole, Iceland's economy, foreign investment stability, but still a lot of people are a little bit concerned that the money is going to a foreign company. And that's a very, very fair criticism. They also consume 80% of the electricity. So when Landsvirkjun is making energy or electricity, 80% of the grid, the base load in engineering terms, goes to the smelters. Only 20% goes to the consumers. So if for consumers you can say conserve your energy, remember that's only 20% of the pie. 80% of the pie goes directly to the aluminum smelters. The problem is, or the challenge is, the Iceland government is tied into 20 to 25-year contracts with the smelters. So they cannot break their contract. The question will be, when the contract is finished, will they renew the contract or not? So my interviews with the aluminum smelting people said that there's no appetite for a fourth smelter. They are all very, very cognizant of it. The only question is, will the contracts be renewed or not. So that just depends upon how much pushback is there from the community towards the smelters and how much does Iceland need that revenue from the aluminum smelters. So there's a lot of skepticism around the new smelters due to energy shortages and such. And also Iceland's economy is diversifying into IT and green energy and other kind of things. And also one more thing, when aluminum smelting came in, they brought in jobs, but right now that has gone away. They actually have very, very few jobs and they're in very highly skilled areas. And if you've gone around, Iceland is already importing people. They don't need more jobs per se, because there are a lot of people, as you've seen, coming from other countries as well. Right? The second was carbon capture. So again, this is my picture from that plant 25 miles outside of Iceland when you go. So carbon capture in engineering terms is when you are sequestering CO2 from the atmosphere and you're pumping it in. So there are many plants around the world. There's one in Houston. Iceland actually has 2 or 3 big carbon capture plants. So there are 2 of them. There's carbon capture and utilization, and then there's direct air storage without getting too technical. So the idea is you're taking CO2 in and they're mixing it in some kind of water, and they're putting it in the basalt rock and burying it underground. So there was a big hoopla. The president or the prime minister was there. Macron came. There's a lot of venture funding that came in. So it came with a lot of pomp and show, but now there's some serious concerns around carbon capture as well. Groundwater risk, there's a whole community around Hafnarfjörður where they're saying all this groundwater is going to be put in wells, again, not in my backyard. Then the second thing is, how do you capture that CO2? The idea was when they came in that they would take the carbon emission from the aluminum and put that in, but that hasn't happened. For the carbon capture, you need a CO2 concentration of 5 to 7%. The aluminum output is very diffused. It's less than 0.5%. So very few people know that, but it's not a complete closed loop. So they said they are still working on it. That remains to be seen. So they are still working on the research and development to try to capture that tail end pipe, if you will. And Iceland already has low carbon. And if you look around, Icelanders love their cars. A lot of their emission is coming from cars. You cannot capture the tail end emissions and pump it over there, right? So that concentration has to come in a very specific form. So that circular economy potential hasn't been fully utilized yet. And also for right now in this plant, they're getting CO2, but they're getting it on ships from the rest of Europe. So it's not really doing what it was originally intended to do, though there's a lot of potential out there. So this remains to be seen whether the plants in Iceland will actually capture Iceland's emissions and pump that in Iceland's ground soil. Right, so I try not to get too technical on that, but I wanted to share carbon capture with you. All right, what about personal and organizational tension? This is where I really try to make my respondents a little tense, and some of them said, I will not respond to that. And that's fine too. I said there were 2 questions. In your personal role, do you feel any tension in your role? And secondly, for your organization, whether you work for Landsvirkjun or Rio Tinto, do you feel there's a tension there? But for those who chose to actually engage and answer, they did admit that there was some tension or concerns in balancing industrial development with public acceptance, collaboration amongst energy producers. The mayor's representative talked about the city of Reykjavik has a goal of being carbon neutral by 2030. How is she going to do that with all the waste and all the carbon emissions from cars? She has a daunting goal ahead of her. And they also have to meet EU climate commitments because they have signed up for this 2030 goal within some kind of a net impact goal. And so they're getting some EU funding. Unified advocacies, all the industries, aluminum, have a strong voice here. And so they are navigating permissions and other kind of things as well. Right? Balancing development and conservation. Most of my respondents were pretty much on point along this one. Most of them did recognize that, yes, we have to develop, but more on a steady state, all right? So not in some kind of crazy growth. And a lot of them talked about diversification. So food, aluminum, technology, a lot of people talk about green tech, innovation, IT, data centers, cloud computing. Remember, cloud computing also takes a lot of energy. We don't realize it, but that, all this Bitcoin and stuff requires huge data centers. Data centers requires huge, enormous amounts of energy as well. So on this point, most of our respondents were on the same page. The Arctic, the stakeholders, I asked them, most of the people said the main stakeholders are the energy companies, though they did recognize that corporate interests usually overpower local community interests, and the government favors traditional industries such as fisheries and aluminum over the new industries. This is what they said. The emerging sectors, of course, tourism and so on. Okay. Climate change in Arctic, this is where I was a little surprised. There was some pushback, though many people did say they were concerned about climate change in the Arctic. You can imagine some of the respondents said, hey, climate change is good because if the glaciers melt, that means more water. If we have more water, that means more energy. More energy means more revenue. So, I mean, again, we have to take all the considerations and all the answers. Glacier, as you know, is trapped rainfall over years and years. So when that flow goes out, it, of course, does impact the energy companies in a positive way. But they were cognizant about the vulnerability to climate change. Some sectors are at a greater risk, especially fisheries and others. And here, the respondents were very critical about the government. So it was very interesting. So they went on a rampage, and I was just trying to keep all the notes together. So they were like, we're a little country, what can we do? And the government is corrupt and yada, yada. So in any case, lessons for students and policymakers. It really made me happy to hear people saying that you need to start teaching sustainability in business. This is what I've been doing for 20 years. So of course, that made me so thrilled. Generational thinking, we have to think about other species, other generations. Transparency and accountability. My respondents were very critical about the transparency in their own government, that the government doesn't always tell them when they are giving contracts out or renewing contracts. Global and local actions, the whole act local, be global, and resource management, again, better governance kept coming again and again, right? So that's my research. Thank you for, bearing with me. Teaching, again, I thought, gosh, I'm a little supply chain expert. I came in all hoity-toity thinking I'll teach my supply chain course. At University of Iceland, there are 2 terms, the first term and the second term. I was supposed to teach in the second term. I did all the social media, talked about my course, only 2 kids enrolled. So I had to cancel it. I was not going to teach 2 people. So then with the help of my dean and Adil Akman, we talked to all the other professors who are teaching in the MBA and the MSA program. So I went and guest lectured in 5 different classes. In corporate environmental management, I taught carbon offsets. I talked about the role of reporting in the US in corporate governance, because that's what I teach in my MBA and my PhD classes back home. In international business, I talked about risk and resilience and global supply chains and how during COVID, all the supply chains essentially collapsed. In lean and agile, which is Adil's class, I talked about supply chain. And in innovation, I talked about how small minority and female entrepreneurs can do carbon offset projects. So I tried to give back because a part of my Fulbright grant was around teaching. Conferences and publications, I presented a paper at the NFF. It says like Academy of Management when I first came in. This is an Arctic conference picture. And so I'm working on a teaching case. I'm also planning to do a research case. Since I have all this data, I might as well try to get 2 hits out of it. Right? There we go. Oops, sorry, I want to go back. All right, these are my pictures. I want to show you my son, who was in a way, this is my son. He came to Iceland with his soccer team way back. And we went to a Viking restaurant, and he's like, Mom, you gotta try the dreaded shark. And I was like, no way in hell. And he's like, when in Rome, Mom, you gotta try it. And here's some Brennivin. So I tried the shark, I nearly threw up, I gagged. And then he poured some more Brennivin, which did not help. So that was like the worst experience. I am not a fan of shark. It was I'm sorry, but yeah, I didn't do shark. This is a puffin. I felt really bad for those cute little puffins, but I tried it and it wasn't bad. It was like a pheasant. This is whale. I tried whale. It was like a filet mignon, fancy, but I tried whale. You want to say I've tried the delicacies. So this is my little fam, my daughter, my son, my friends came. I was a bartender in grad school, so I went around looking for the best Cosmo I could find, from dive bars to fancy bars. There are my eyes, my peeps from here. We went to the white Russian Lebowski bars, tried. Those are my girlfriends at the greenhouse. So, I tried to sample everything. This is my mom. She tried to do the hike up in Golden Circle. So there were a lot of fun excursions to be had. What will I take back? The landscape. I can't get over how beautiful your landscape is. The light, the dark, the contrast. I was able to see 2 volcanic eruptions. That's from my window. The second one in November. I love the fluffy sheep. The setting sun off the coast in my neighborhood. And I spent all my time at Cafe West, I think they took most of my grant. I might as well have opened an account with them, right? But I kept seeing Björk. So this is my very surreptitious picture of Björk. She's a very shy person, so I couldn't go to her face. But at least I got to say I could hang out with Björk. So I'm a big fan, but I couldn't tell her that. Gosh, this is a little personal. This Fulbright really gave me my mojo back. After 20 years of teaching, you get to a point where the students are like, why do we have to know this? Will this be on the exam? Why are you teaching this? So you get into a rut. I was up for a sabbatical, I applied for the grant, I got here. And, this is a poem I wrote up in Thingfiller. I tried to write poetry and a memoir. So what Iceland taught me was it was a very illuminating experience, but it was very isolating. There were days I would go without talking to anybody. So if you know me, I'm very extroverted. So that was a really hard experience for me. But it gave me time to go inwards. It gave me time to really go deep to see, am I on the path that I wanted to be when I left India at 18, or have I deviated around it? And also, if you go through some tough times in life, you go through ruptures, you go through heartbreaks, at the sake of not sounding too anthropomorphic, if the earth can rupture and heal itself, so can we, So if you ever have a heartbreak or life throws you a little loop, remember, you can heal because the earth heals and so can we. So it was a spiritual experience, and then I wanted to mark it on my body. I said, I'm going to get a tattoo. Why not? I'm 50 plus, I'm going to do it. So my name means a lotus, so I got a lotus. Then I worked with a rune artist. So Kanaz is elimination, rebirth through sacrifice and creation. Algis is defense and protection, and Laguz is water. So my journey is, I had to let go of certain things. I had to let go of certain things that needed to die before I could be reborn. And the new beginnings and new growth only happens when you get rid of certain things that needed to be rid of from your life. And because I'm spiritual, I always believe we can use with a god or two at our sides. All right. So thank you for giving me my mojo back.
Oh.
All right.
Excellent. We do have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions if someone has something. Yes, Jack?
Yeah, when you were looking at the aluminum smelting, did you look at the end waste products of aluminum besides emissions like slag or wastewater that comes from the aluminum plants, or are there other waste products besides emissions?
I could not look into it because I'm purely doing a stakeholder interview study. I'm not doing a material study.
Okay.
You are right, they are there. And for that, I would rely on, published case reports and include it in the study. But when I was talking to people, especially since I was talking to aluminum people, they were very hesitant in talking about it.
Okay.
But my primary source is the interviews collected. And so you are absolutely right. They are waste emission, but nobody wants to talk about it.
Okay.
So I will include it, but more from secondary sources when I go through the Icelandic newspaper articles, which then through Google Chrome, I have to translate to English.
Right.
So absolutely, I will look into that. Thanks. Good question.
There was one question from someone on Zoom who was asking whether you've seen the movie Woman at War, the Icelandic movie.
No, I haven't.
And because this is something in your presentation reminded them of that. So
Okay.
maybe it's something for you to look up.
Thank you, Aaron. I'll put it down. I spent a lot of time on Netflix, so I'll put it down. Anything else?
I have
Yeah.
a question. Yeah, it's really interesting to learn. Actually, this is actually set a stage for us to present in the next. But I think I learned a lot from your first part of the research. You talked about the aluminum smelt actually take like 80% of the energy, electricity. But how much contribution to the economy of the?
Quite significant. I can get you the numbers. It's changed over the years. In the 60s, it was much more, and now it's changed. But with the 1/3, so right now, I think tourism is the biggest. But at one point, aluminum was the one that was bringing in the highest portion of their GDP. So from the 60s to now, it's changed quite a bit. But at one point, it was the biggest leg of that stool. Yeah. But I can get you the exact numbers later, of course. Any others?
I think then we just say thank you, Kathy. It was.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to seeing your case study.
I will send it to you.
Yeah. So our second speaker today is Hongjie of Fulbright NSF Distinguished Arctic Scholar, who is accompanied by his wife May, who's also here today. He comes to us from the University of Texas, San Antonio, and has extensive experience in his field in remote sensing. He's hosted by the Center of Remote Sensing, which is under the School of Engineering and Natural Science at the University of Iceland. And we see here his project. So I'm going to just invite you to come up and take the floor.
Thank you very much, Blaine. And I think Cass did a great job, and Luana, I think I have really to praise you actually, but I'll do my best. So this study is actually I'll talk a little bit about the background, if I may, because why I want to study this. Because if you look at the snow cover seasonal change for the North American and the Eurasian, you can see there's good trend in seasonally. From autumn, there's increase in both continental and also in winter, a little bit increase trend, but in the spring, both decrease clearly. So how Iceland, because Iceland is between these two continents, so we don't know what is the same pattern or is different. And also, we don't know the slope depths of this slope cover, because slope cover, like Kathy just mentioned, snow and also the glacier is very important for the hydropower. And the runoff based on the snow melting in the summer, in the spring, will bring lots of water into the hydropower. But how this change, if there's change, how they actually impact the local economy and the hydropower and the tourist industry. So this is actually the motivation of my study. So there's actually some study here for this snow cover in Iceland. This is one example by my colleagues in University of Iceland. Actually, they published before I came here. So if you look at this study from the modeling perspective, temperature will continue to increase as we can see that is like continued from the 1960s to the 2100. You will see the continued increase, 1.5 degree to 2 degree maximum. Precipitation precipitation will also increase in the years. And then because temperature increase will actually decrease the snow cover. So the snow cover is supposed to be decreased, okay? But if you look at the same paper, actually, they look at the in situ measurement from field measurement, you can see the different picture from the 1950s to currently, the snow cover actually increase and the snow depths also increase. So from the observation and the simulation, you can see the contradiction. So which one is right? Or both right? Or which one is wrong? Or both wrong? We don't know. So that's my motivation for this study. So can we also look at this snow cover change in seasonal perspective? Okay, and can we also look at this actually in the watershed perspective? Okay, so we can separate this Iceland into 4 watersheds: the watershed northwest, northeast, and the southeast, southwest. So capital area here we are actually in the 104, the southwest. Okay, so So then my objective actually is to look at this snow cover change from both watershed and also seasonal perspective to see how they change and how they maybe impact the hydrology, the water, the power, hydropower, whatever else. So first we will look at the pattern. So what I'm going to study to use is sensing MODIS data, like ICET2 data, ICET data for the snow depths, and MODIS for the snow cover. Then climate data, we look at the temperature, the rainfall, the precipitation pattern, and also we use in situ measurement from the field work. Okay, so this is the data set talk about the snow cover from MODIS, which is the sensor in both Taylor and Echo satellite, and they started 2000 and 2002. So the Taylor satellite also called a morning satellite, and Echo satellite called like afternoon satellite. So they actually pass through the same location twice per day. So the morning is the Taylor and the afternoon is the Echo pass to Iceland. So they give you a snow cover mapping twice per day. So my study will actually combine this daily, morning and afternoon snow cover into daily, then combine them, accumulate them from daily to 8-day product. Okay. All of this data actually were based on the Google Earth engine. So I'm not going to download data to my local computer. All of this data actually processed in the Google Earth engine and I use Python programming. So I look at all of the data from 2002 to 2024 and see the pattern of the change. Okay, so here's an example show you this 4 years of snow cover for the entire Iceland. You can see the pattern actually. You can see the high snow cover in the winter, then decrease, then lower in the summertime, then come back in the autumn and the winter time. You realize this actually there's a data gap, which is actually the polar light. You don't have the MODIS data because this is the optical images. If we look at the watershed scale, you can see they are very different from watershed to watershed. Okay, so the 104, which is the red one, which is our capital area, you can see the snow cover actually is a much lower covered area. And then the 102 northeast part is a much higher area for snow cover. Okay, but under this pattern actually very similar like the entire Iceland. So we can see the northeast actually control or dominate the snow cover pattern for the entire Iceland. Okay, this area don't pay much impact. And 102, 103, they're similar, but much smaller portion compared to the northeast. So this set until you can see actually the 102 area actually control or dominate the entire snow cover for the Iceland area. So for the snow depths, we are actually use the ICET2 to minus the slope of Arctic DN. So you can see, so ICET2, they are laser altimeter to measure the elevation of the surface. Okay, if there's no slope, the elevation of the surface is the ICET elevation. But if there's snow here, the elevation of the surface minus the elevation from the DN, slope of DN, then we can get the snow depth. So this is the principle. We can use the laser altimeter to map the snow depth. Okay, so actually my plan was actually to do the entire Iceland. But later I find from my colleagues here in the university, also in the weather station, the weather bureau, and also the land survey institute, they told me just there's a person, a postdoc, last year actually, he was here, he did a type of work. So he didn't finish it, but he already did the work. So they said, okay, you don't need to repeat that work, but you can focus on the glaciers because his work only focus on the land area without glacier, but my work can focus on the glaciers, look at the slope depths of all of these glaciers. So one of the glacier they recommend me to first look at is this Hongjie curve. So they give me awesome data. So this is the data, the DM they gave to me. So it's two different DM. One is the 2020 October, another one is 2023 October, and then also the field measurement, 40 years, almost 40 years field measurement from 1988 to 2024. So there's lots of data, good data they gave to me. So of course we are working together, we have published the result together. So then, so you can see for this glacier, there's the peak is in the center, and then you have the elevation decrease and the elevation decrease to the surrounding area. So area from 600 meter to 1800 meter. Okay, the center is here. If we put a profile from here to there, you can see the surface elevation and also the below the ice cover. There's a bigger volcano. This is the crater. Okay, so the depth of the ice actually 750 meters, and the ice in this part, this side and this side is like 200 meters. Okay, so this gives you a really good perspective of the glacier, the depth of this, but they are actually melting. So if we simply just use this one minus this one, you will see the downish melting of the glacier. So I will show you the result later on. Okay, so the another data set I actually use is the ER5 climate data, which mostly I will use the snowfall data and the air temperature data. So this is example showing the snowfall and air temperature for this 4 watershed I look at from the 2000 to currently, so like 25 years of data. So you can see they don't have much trend per se, because they are very flat from year to year. But one thing we can see is our area, which is 104, which is the capital area, always has low snowfall for all of the season. Okay, from the fall season, spring season, and the winter season. And then for the fall, actually the 102, which is the northeast part, has the highest snowfall. But for the other 2 seasons, winter and the spring season, actually the 103, which is the southeast part, actually has the highest snowfall. For temperature, it's clearly our area, the 104, always has high temperature, and the northeast part always has the lower temperature. Okay, so it's always clear. And you also see a little bit of change is recently the temperature actually decreased in the winter time, and also a little bit in the fall time recently. I think this is also observed by other study. Anyway, so this is the data from the ERA5 climate data, where I will use this data to correlate my result from the snow cover to see how the rainfall and the temperature impact the snow cover distribution. Okay, so here is the result. For the auto, we don't see any pattern from each sub-watershed or total for Iceland as a group. Okay, so this is different from the Eurasian and the North American, because Eurasian North American, if you remember, there's a big increase trend in the auto snow cover, but we don't see any trend here. Then for the winter, there's the increase trend, similar like what we saw in the North America and the Eurasia. They are actually flat and a little bit increased. So this is the same pattern, but only significant in the in the northeast and also the total Iceland, because northeast dominated the Iceland. So clearly you can see there's a significant increase for the northeast and the entire, but a lot for the northwest and the southeast and the southwest, which is our area. Okay, so this is very clear. So northeast dominated the Iceland, entire Iceland snow cover. So for the springtime, we don't see any trend, but some of them maybe you can see a little bit of decrease mostly and a little bit of increase, but really there's no significant trend. There's no significant. This is different from what the North America and the Eurasia, they actually decrease. But here we don't see that trend. But if we look at the pesos, if we look at this one, increase, then decrease. If we look at this one, also increase and decrease, maybe if we do a pesos linear regression, maybe we actually see the change. And so we do actually see there's a break point. 2014, 2015 is a break point, breaking year. Before that was increase, then decrease for the 102, which northeastern, and for the entire Iceland. Okay, so this is really interesting. So you can think about what is the reason why this year have a big change in that northeast part. Actually, later on, I will in the discussion, I will speculation. My speculation is the eruption, volcanic eruption. That big eruption. Okay, so that is my suspicion. I don't have the. I would say that's probably the reason, but I don't have any proof yet. Okay. So for the summer, even though you see the summer, the snow cover area is really small, like 4% in the capped area, and the maximum 10 or 8% in the northeast part. So it's really small. But we don't see any trend. But if we do a piecewise regression, we also see some pattern. So see some pattern for the southeast. There's increase, then decrease trend, because these three are significant, very significant, 99% significant level. Okay, then for the total, actually there's a turning point in this period, and for the northeastern, yeah, the same turning point, 2014, 2015. So you're wondering why the southeast has a big turning point. There's a big volcanic eruption also 2010 in the glacier, in the southern glacier. So this turn big snow cover, decrease the snow cover. My expectation, but I think really luckily, but that's will be my discussion. Okay, so if you look at the snowfall and the snow cover, clearly the increase of snowfall will increase the snow cover. Okay, for every sub-watershed, it's very clear, the positive correlation. Okay, and but this positive correlation only significant in the autumn time. Other season they are not significant, only significant in the autumn. And if you look at the temperature, air temperature is clear. I think increased air temperature will decrease the snow cover. Okay, this is very clear. The negative impact air temperature to the snow cover. I think everybody understand that. And we also see most of the season, actually for most of the sub-watershed, there is a significant correlation between air temperature to snow cover. So this is very reasonable finding. Okay, in terms of the snow depth, so we focus on this glacier. So you can see this is the difference between the 2020 to 2023, the 3 year DN October. So you can see there's a big elevation decrease. Maximum in the edge area up to like 10 meters of decrease. Okay, if you look at this is a 3 year, average is like a 3.3 meter decrease of the ice melting or whatever. Okay, so that is a very significant. And the inside they're much smaller. Even some of the points, some of the area you can see actually little bit increase, which mostly about the 1400 meter altitude level. Okay, so we also use ISI2 which we have 6 years of data, minus the DN 2020 use the DN 2020 as our background or the baseline. So use ISAT2 elevation to minus the DN for 2022 October 1. Then we can get each season of the surface elevation change. Okay, so if we look at the winter 2019, you can see the snow cover or the surface elevation is higher than the 2020 because there's snow in that winter because and also the year before is clearly is high elevation. But if you look at this one, okay, the 2023 summer, you can see this is lower, okay, because it's 3 years later, the surface already melted, so it's surface melted, and the elevation, the difference is negative. If you look at this winter 2024, you can see the further negative. So this ISAT2 data give us based on this actually kind of validation, use the DN data. We can see a very good trend of the change, and the data itself is very good. So if you look at this combine all of this data, the 6 years together, we can see average for the entire area is like a 1 meter surface elevation decrease. And if you remember, we say that in the edge area, it's like a 3.3 meter elevation decrease. Okay. So this is compared with the in situ measurement. You can see they're very good match. So this line is from ISAT, and there's the increase, which is because compared to 2001, the springtime with the DN 2020 October. Okay, the springtime you have lots of snow on top of the glacier, so that's why you see the increase. And then compared with very well in the same color range for the in situ measurement. Okay, so this is also another way to see. Okay, the ISAT2 data is very good. So if you look at because the in situ measurement can start from 1988, so they give us data for 20 stations. So you can see the annual decrease, annual surface elevation or mass balance decrease is about 1 meter, 1 meter water equivalent per year decrease. Okay, okay, so here's a summary for my research. So you can see we analyze the snow cover change both in watershed and seasonal scale for the period of 2002 to 2024 using MODIS data. And then we didn't see any clear or significant increase or decrease on trend for the entire Iceland. And but the snow cover in the northeast watershed actually dominated the entire snow cover in Iceland. This is what we find. And the only significant snow cover increase trend was found in the winter season for the northeast and for the entire Iceland. In spring, the significant increase then decrease trend are found in both the northeast and the entire Iceland. The turning year was 2014-2015. Okay. Then also in the summer, we see increase then decrease in the northeast, southeast, and the entire Iceland, and with different turning years. So here below, actually, I interpret or use other data to explain this result. Okay, we can say, okay, snowfall actually has a positive correlation to the snow cover change, and the temperature has negative impact to the snow cover change. I think it's very clear from our data. Only, of course, only like the auto, which is significant for the snowfall, for air temperature actually mostly are significant. And my speculation is for the 2040-2050 turning point was due to this called hollow halo eruption. Okay, yes. And for the 2008 2009 is mostly due to this glacier eruption. What is the name? How is it?
Well, how do you say it?
Okay, I try to say it. Just like Kujo. I don't know. Okay, yeah, it's difficult. But I think this is very relevant. But I need to put more thought to use this to interpret that. Okay. Then for the slope depths, actually we analyze the slope depths and mass balance for the Hof stroke. Use ISI2 DMs in situ measurement. We find for the ISI2 period, there's 1 meter surface mass balance loss average for the entire year, but for the glacier edge area, there's 3.3 meter per year of loss. Then for the in situ measurement from the 1880 to currently, there's 1 meter or the equivalent loss per year average. So further analysis interpretation are underway. I think by I think I have more result to, but yeah. Anyway, so I think that's my research part. Okay, so I'm going to activity photos. I have lots of photos actually, but I will not show everything. But I participate and also presented in 3 conferences. So 2 in the Hapa, and also this active circle. I think many of you guys also there. And also we went to the IGS meeting in the Haley South. Actually, Lana is the only one actually went through this with me. That's good. Yeah, everyone actually went too. Okay, so many went to this one. Okay, great. So I give 2 graduate seminars. One is in the Civil Environmental Engineering department. Another one is the Institute of Earth Science. And actually, some of my colleagues actually went there also to show support for my talk. I also attended lots of presentations in the university, graduate research report, and also PhD defense in the university. I made a discussion with many professors, scientists from the university, from Wade, from LANT, and so that's why I get so much good data set from them. Otherwise, you can never get this data set to work on, which I think this good correlation will last me for many years to go. And attending lots of activity organized by the Fulbright, the embassy, and also the alumni association. So, so this is some pictures here. Yeah, so it's very nice. Yeah. And I also have lots of activities in my spare time. So I enjoy actually taking advantage of this swimming pool. The thermal water was great. There's no place like here in Iceland. So we go. My wife and me go to swim at least twice per week. Twice per week, which is very good. We enjoy that, yeah. And well, we also enjoy the Sunday worship in Baptist church nearby where I live. So I think it was very good. The English speaking. There are not many church actually speak English.
Was it Lindarkirkja maybe? Is it Lindar?
Yeah. Probably, yeah. Then so I did lots of hiking nearby and the downtown area and. Estia mountain. If anyone want to go, actually, I would like to go back. I challenge a whole day. What is it there? Anybody, if you want to go, I think I'll go back again, which is great. Went to the volcanic eruption sites, and I traveled a little bit to the Golden Circle and also the Rainbow. With the diamond circle and also Jim's house, Ava's house. So we got nice pictures there when we went to there. Also lots of pictures here. So I couldn't put all of them, but I think I put a few here to represent. So this is actually a very interesting trip. We didn't know that is a private owned company. They charge a lot, but it was very good. So the first time actually. we actually the lift put us down and to there, and this actually he said is the only accessible lava chamber on the Earth. I don't know if this is true or not, but. The first time, only time actually I saw the Arctic fox in the top of here, and also the beautiful, the greatest lamb soup. Yeah, it's here. I did eat twice, two bowls. Wow, it was very good soup. I try to remember how we can make that, and, but yeah.
You can find recipes online.
Yeah, this is so good. Yeah. Yeah, so I think this one everybody know that this is a very good classic place. Lots of waterfalls, beautiful waterfalls, and I only show 4 here, but I think I went tons of waterfalls. Beautiful, and glacier and the glacier lagoon. That's so beautiful. This is my old daughter. She came here for 10 days. We took her to there, and. So this is the Diamond Beach. She was so my wife is here. She's here. So this very nice. And oh, the geothermal, lots of place geothermal. And recently we went to this eruption just a few days, a week ago actually. Went to see that, and it was very good. And the lots of fantastic landscape everywhere you go. So you never forget, and beautiful. So I think one of the best place I would suggest is the northeast part. Every one of this is beautiful if you look at that. So I have a picture here from the number 4, and I stand on this part and look at it. Look at this part, you can see that's this part. You can go on. Actually, I have a video, but I don't have time to show. If I have time, I can show that. And then, so this is in the Miwak Lake. Yeah. So this is actually lots of critters. You see there are critters, but it's actually pseudo critters. They are not real critters. They are actually formed due to the lava pass through this area. If there's water or weight of water below, they actually compress that area, eventually erupt. They erupt, become all of this kind of craters, but they don't have a root from the mantle. Yeah, because the lava is coming from this eruption and the flow there. This is a beautiful place. I think everybody should go there. Okay. Oh, yeah. I think this is one actually very interesting. So this the early people, Iceland people, they came here. They stay in this turf roof buildings. We went to there, actually, so big inside, it can be very big and can handle lots of people live there. And but they're very nice. If you look at outside, they're just turf, and they can keep the temperature warm very well. Okay, so I think this is my last slide. Thank you, Fulbright. Thank you, Belinda, Peter, and April for your great support for this journey. Thank you. It's unbelievable.
Oh,
Thank you.
that was certainly very interesting. Oh, did you?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. Yes, so do we have questions for, I'm sure there are some, so we have our geologists here. Yes.
I just have one, well, I guess it's kind of a two-part because I was curious when you mentioned that the volcanic eruptions might have been causing the snow cover to decrease. There's also a paper out that shows that the cooling in the North Atlantic Ocean is causing Icelandic glaciers to, they're still retreating, but they're just retreating slower since 2011. They just, no one knows why yet. So that might also be affecting it. What do you think?
That actually changes the snowfall pattern, which is actually also change the temperature, air temperature pattern. which is actually also we considered already into our correlation analysis. Yeah, but this volcanic eruption is additive or is a secondary or additional, or maybe sometimes I think a dominant fact for that immediate change. So that's what I'm thinking.
Like, is it because like the glacier would be covered with ash or what, or like just the gases?
They don't have many, the ash actually, the 2008, 2009, or the 2010 one actually had lots of ashes. But the 2014, 15 one, they don't have much ash, okay? But they flew into a big area and sustained for like half a year and have a big impact for that area or surrounding area. Because lots of the snow cover actually in that is in the major snow cover actually for the northeast part is in that highland areas. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Jack?
Yeah, so you showed the model at the beginning of like snowfall, and then you showed that it differed from like the observed result. I know you didn't make the model, but like, are there any variables you think that any major variables that aren't being accounted for in the model that like you might have come across doing your research that might be responsible for them being completely wrong, basically?
Yeah. I think in that paper they also mentioned about the North Atlantic circulation kind of fact that maybe should have included into that model. They didn't. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to stop here because we've run a little over time. But for those who are here in person, we can continue some discussions with both of our speakers afterwards. So what I'd like to do is just thank both of them for great presentations and for coming here to Iceland, uprooting themselves, coming here and spending a semester with us. We really appreciate that. Because it's a win-win, right? Iceland benefits from your expertise and your insights coming, we often say that the guest's eyes often sees better, right? So I think that's definitely true. But also you will be taking back with you lots of new insights and information, and will hopefully be reinvigorated, as you mentioned, Kathy, in your work when you go back home. That's what Fulbright is all about, right? Again, I just want to thank you both so much. I do want to mention that that if any Americans are watching or tuning in who are not here in Iceland, that the next round of applications will open in February in the United States for those who would be interested in applying for Fulbright to Iceland. And I think these great representatives will tell you that it's definitely worth it, right? Yeah, so I just want to thank you both again for everything that you've contributed here in Iceland. We really appreciate it. You will be joining, of course, the Fulbright alumni now, soon, not quite yet, but in the new year. And so we hope that you will continue to foster a connection with Iceland, with the Commission, and that we will get a chance to see you back here, but also when we do events in the States, that you'll be participating in those. And we have a little gift for the both of you. I'd like to ask you both to come up and receive your little Fulbright Iceland swag.
Yeah. Wow.
So here's a gift, and this is a Fulbright Iceland pin.
Ooh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure having you here. And yes, and that's it. I'm going to ask you two to stand so we can take a photo. But everybody else can start looking at the sandwiches that are out in the photo. And to everybody who joined us virtually, thank you so much. And I want to mention that we're doing another one of these on Monday. We have two fabulous scholars presenting at lunchtime on Monday. And so one in business and one in bioinformatics, one in Reykjavik, one in Akureyri. So we really hope that we'll see some of you back here, or most of you back here for that. And yeah, so I'm going to just end the formal part here and just say, until next time, let us continue to forge a better future with Fulbright. Bye-bye.